Brothers and sisters, gather around to hear a tale that I never imagined I'd be telling. Life has a way of surprising us, and my journey took a turn that I could scarcely believe. I found myself in a place of despair, a realm often spoken of in hushed tones, the very pits of hell. In that harrowing place, I encountered something that left me breathless, a revelation of sorts. The melodies I had sung countless times, those ubiquitous tunes that echoed in every club and street corner, were being wielded by demons to torment the souls trapped in that eternal abyss. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Santiago. I was raised in what appeared to be a typical environment, but beneath the surface, shadows loomed. I never fostered a true relationship with God. Instead, I was consumed by the allure of music, the chase of money, the thrill of parties, and the intoxication of power. Unbeknownst to me, each step I took in pursuit of these fleeting pleasures edged me closer to a fate I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Yet, in His infinite mercy, God took pity on me. He granted me a second chance to return to the world of the living and to share with you the truth of what lies beyond the veil of this life. If you're hearing these words, it's because you've been given an opportunity to pause and reflect before the sands of time run out for you. Rewinding to my younger days, at the tender age of 15, my life began to veer off course. I lived in a neighborhood rife with temptations, where the lure of easy money was a siren's call from every street corner. All I craved then was recognition, to stand out regardless of the means. I started selling trinkets, insignificant at first, but soon the allure of quicker profits led me down a darker path: drugs. What began as a mere dalliance quickly morphed into an all-consuming obsession. By the time I reached 20, I had become a kingpin in my city's underworld, wielding control over various gangs and catering to high-profile clients. Money flowed in torrents, granting me access to any place and thing my heart desired. I felt invincible, as if no force on earth could thwart my ambitions. However, despite my apparent successes, a gaping void resided in my heart. When the cacophony of parties dimmed and the drug-induced euphoria waned, an inexplicable chasm opened wide within me. I sought to fill it with more of the same: wealth, women, dominance. But nothing could quench the inner thirst that grew ever more parched. It wasn't that I disbelieved in God. I simply didn't care for His existence. I was too preoccupied to consider a higher power, convincing myself that there would always be time to turn back, should I ever truly need to. Little did I know how mistaken I was. Even as my life was enmeshed in the web of drugs and easy money, the true gravity of my situation eluded me until I turned 22, and the atmosphere around me took a turn for the darker and more sinister. I vividly recall the sequence of events. Roll, a close friend, introduced me to a type of music unlike anything I'd ever heard. The lyrics were indecipherable to me, yet the songs carried a haunting and hypnotic quality, as if they were crafted to ensnare the soul. Roll often spoke of their power, but initially I paid them little mind. However, as time passed, I noticed a change within myself: increased aggression, a detachment from once cherished values, and even an estrangement from my family. Roll's discourse soon expanded to include symbols and rituals he claimed could bring fortune and protection. I scoffed at first, but my curiosity was piqued. The more we conversed, the more I found myself drawn in. Roll showed me tattoos and symbols, claiming they represented spiritual might, and suggested that if I embraced them, no harm could befall me. It wasn't long before I delved deeper, researching topics I barely understood, scouring books, internet pages, and videos, all leading me to a place both dark and strangely compelling. It felt like playing with fire, but my pride and desire for control overshadowed any internal warnings. I told myself it was just for fun, but deep down, I knew it was more serious. As the days turned into months, my life spiraled into chaos. Conflicts within my world intensified, and my substance use grew heavier. I resorted to pills to calm my fraying nerves, but they only fueled my paranoia. I convinced myself I was in control, that these were mere mental games or side effects of my lifestyle, But the truth was that I had opened a door I didn't understand and couldn't close. One seemingly ordinary night at Roll's house, our routine of substance use and music planning was underway. Nothing appeared amiss until we played a new track. Roll noted its eerie, almost trance-like rhythm. Though the lyrics were beyond me, a creeping sensation took hold. I tried to dismiss it, but it grew so overpowering that I had to rise and pace the room. "What's wrong with you, brother?" Roll asked, his tone a mix of mockery and concern. I had no answer, only a heavy weight on my chest, as if an invisible force was pressing down on me. Attempting to self-soothe, I chalked it up to a bad trip, but the weight only grew more burdensome. Then, out of nowhere, a word long forgotten surfaced in my mind: Jesus. I couldn't comprehend why, but the name echoed throughout my thoughts, filling every crevice of my being with an inexplicable conviction that something monumental was about to unfold. I looked at Roll and uttered, "I don't know what's happening, but I feel we need to change. This is all wrong." Roll burst into laughter, dismissing my concerns as drug-induced delirium. "Brother, I think those pills have hit you hard. Just chill." But I couldn't relax. The weight transformed into a sense of urgent dread, as if the reckoning was at hand. I stumbled outside for fresh air, finding the street eerily silent and empty. Under the glow of a street lamp, I began to vocalize words I had never spoken. "I love Jesus. I love Jesus," repeating them in a mantra-like fashion, unsure whether I truly felt this or if fear had simply commandeered my voice. Suddenly, time seemed to stand still. Everything around me became deathly still. I gazed upward, to the heavens, seeking some sign, some answer to the turmoil within. Brothers and sisters, gather around to hear a tale that I never thought I'd be telling. Darkness enveloped me, an inky blackness that seemed alive, pressing in on all sides. An invisible force shoved me to the ground, and there I knelt, a chill running through me, my voice caught in my throat, unable to scream. It felt as though my very soul was being wrenched from my body, a terrifying sensation of detachment and loss. The pain was excruciating as unseen thorns pierced my flesh, each one carrying a deeper agony than the last. What's more frightening than physical pain is the soul's torment, the utter feeling of being lost without hope. The darkness wasn't just absence of light. It was a living, breathing entity trying to consume me. Mocking laughter echoed all around, voices that replayed my life's mistakes, cruel words, and selfish acts like a haunting symphony. As I was dragged through this endless tunnel, resistance was futile, and the thorns seemed to tear at me with each feeble attempt to stop. Then, a voice pierced through the cacophony, speaking directly to my heart. "Santiago, this is your fate, what you have chosen." The voice was deep and authoritative, unmistakably divine, convincing me that this was where my actions had led me, and escape was impossible. Overwhelmed by fear, yet a spark within refused to accept this verdict, clinging desperately to hope. The tunnel finally opened up to a motionless space, an abyss that was infinite and filled with grotesquely moving shadows and flames that seemed to swallow light rather than emit it. The screams here were of souls in utter despair, crying out for a second chance that would never come. Distant figures, tall and gaunt with distorted, inhuman shapes, moved with disdain and hate. Some held chains, dragging souls deeper into the void, while others watched the suffering with a sick sort of pleasure. In that frozen moment of horror, I witnessed something that left me breathless, a melody, hauntingly familiar, from the songs I once enjoyed at Roll's house, now twisted among the cries of tormented spirits. It dawned on me that many earthly pleasures were directly tied to this place of torment, songs and decisions that had unwittingly opened the door to this abyss. Paralyzed by regret, I observed the consuming flames of my past choices. I understood true desperation, knowing I had crossed a point of no return. Have you ever felt that it was too late to change? Share your stories in the comments. I deeply appreciate reading your experiences. Just when I felt there was no escape from this pit of despair, something extraordinary unfolded. A deafening silence fell upon the place, halting the screams, the mockery, and the torment as if a greater presence had arrived. The shadows ceased their dance and began to retreat, as if frightened by an unseen force. A light emerged, starting as a tiny speck but growing rapidly. Unlike the consuming flames of the abyss, this was a pure, warm light that brought peace with it. The mere presence of this light seemed to calm the chaos and suffering around me. Within this light, a figure appeared, Jesus. Though his face was not clear, his presence was unmistakable, filled with compassion and authority. My knees buckled, not from force, but from the realization that I stood before the one who could save me. Finally, Jesus spoke, his voice gentle yet powerful, resonating within me. Santiago, I have never left you. I've been here, waiting for you to seek me. His words shattered me, reminding me of all the times I ignored his whispers, all the chances I had to change that I squandered away. Tears streamed down my face, not just from fear or remorse, but from feeling truly loved unconditionally. Lord, I managed to say amidst my sobs, forgive me. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I could handle everything alone. Please, give me another chance. Jesus reached out his hand and placed it upon my shoulder. An immense weight lifted from my soul, and the chains that had bound me for years broke away instantly. Guilt, fear, and desperation vanished, replaced by an overwhelming peace that defied understanding. I forgive you, Jesus said with a tenderness I'll never forget, but now you have a purpose. Go back and tell others what you have seen. My love is stronger. There is still time for them, but they must choose before it's too late. Thus, I was given a second chance, a chance to share this harrowing experience, a chance to warn others that the choices we make can lead us to places of unimaginable darkness. But there is always a light, a hope, if we but seek it. Remember, it's never too late to turn towards that light. I didn't know how to respond. How could someone like me, so lost, be worthy of carrying such a message? Yet, in his eyes, I found the answer. It wasn't about what I deserved. It was about what could be accomplished through me at this pivotal moment. Jesus reached out to me as if inviting me to rise from the depths of despair. I took his hand, and instantly, the chasm surrounding me began to fade. Shadows vanished, screams fell silent, and light enveloped everything. It felt as though I was being transported to an entirely new realm, my soul being restored. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in an unfamiliar place, a hospital room. The first breath I took felt different, my lungs filling with a peace I couldn't articulate. Surrounded by machines beeping rhythmically, I lay in a small room, dimly lit by a window's glow. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming, but the reality was stark. I was back, alive, and somehow transformed. Trying to stand, my body felt weak, as if returning from a grueling battle, yet victorious in an unseen way. My mother was by my side, her eyes brimming with tears. Seeing me awake, she cried out in joy, her sobs echoing gratitude. Thank God, Santiago knew he wouldn't abandon you, she said, holding my hand tightly. I didn't fully grasp what had transpired, but one thing was crystal clear in my mind. Jesus was real. The visions of hell, the cries, the shadows, all were vivid as if I had just left that place seconds ago. Then there was the light, the words of Jesus, his love filling my heart in a manner I had never experienced. Despite the newfound peace, the weight of what I had witnessed was overwhelming. I couldn't stop thinking of the souls trapped in that abyss, their cries of late repentance, and the chains that bound them. In the days following my hospital release, I spent much time alone, trying to comprehend my experience. But I also faced an uncomfortable truth. I needed to break away from everything that led me to that point. Money, drugs, music, all of it now seemed intertwined with the hell I had glimpsed. The first action I took was to open my phone and delete the songs I once cherished. There was something about those tunes that now felt repulsive, recalling how they resonated in the abyss, mingling with demonic chants. Then I called roll, not to continue our business, but to tell him I couldn't go on down the path we were on. He laughed at me, dismissing my words as madness, insisting that was who we were. But I knew I couldn't turn back. My nights were restless too, even though I was in a safe place. The memories of hell haunted me, and I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding. Yet, each time, I remembered Jesus' words, a beacon of hope. One day, as I wandered through the neighborhood, I passed a little church I had always overlooked. For reasons unknown to me, something compelled me to enter. The church was empty save for an older gentleman sweeping the floor. Approaching him shyly, I confessed, "I don't know where to begin, but I need to find God." He set aside his broom, looking at me with a warm smile. "You've found him," he said. "He's been waiting for you." We sat on one of the benches, and I poured out my story to him. He didn't judge or interrupt, just listened intently. When I finished, he told me, "What you saw was no dream. God has given you the chance to change your life and to share what you've seen with others." But he warned, "You must first surrender completely to him." That very afternoon, I knelt for the first time in years and prayed from my heart. "Jesus, thank you for saving me. Forgive me for everything I've done. I give you my life. I want to do what you ask of me." From that day forward, my life began to change dramatically. It wasn't easy. I lost friends, severed toxic ties, and faced much criticism. Some called me crazy. Others claimed I sought attention. But I knew the truth, knew what I had witnessed, and knew Jesus had transformed my life. Over time, I started sharing my story, initially with family and close friends, but soon I realized my testimony could reach further. I couldn't stay silent while others walked toward the same fate I had narrowly escaped. After my encounter with God in the church, I understood my life was no longer just my own. Jesus not only saved me, but also entrusted me with a mission: to warn others of the reality of hell and the transformative love of God. It was a calling that frightened me, yet ignited a passion within my heart. Uncertain of where to start, I was determined to obey. The first time I shared my testimony was with my family in our living room. My voice trembled as I recounted my harrowing journey. The thorny tunnel, the tormented souls, the demons singing songs I once loved, and finally, the moment Jesus spoke to me. My mother wept as I spoke, and my siblings looked on in stunned silence. When I finished, my mother embraced me tightly, affirming that God had a significant purpose for me, that this was no mere coincidence. Their support gave me strength to press on, even knowing not everyone would react the same way. Soon, I decided to share my testimony publicly. Standing before a congregation at a local church, I was nervous. But as I shared my story, I could feel God's presence in the room. Some wept, others stared in astonishment, but all seemed captivated by my words. Not everyone believed me, though. Some accused me of fabrication, seeking the spotlight, or using my past to manipulate. Friends from my old life, including Roll, began to distance themselves, claiming I could not change what I was. Yet I knew deep down I was no longer the same. Despite the criticism, every time I shared my testimony, something profound occurred. People began questioning their own lives, reflecting on their choices, and some decided to surrender to God themselves. Witnessing the impact of my story on others fueled my resolve to keep going, even though the path was fraught with challenges. In every venue I visited, I ended with the same message, a message of hope, transformation, and the urgent reality of life beyond this world. Hell is indeed a reality, but it pales in comparison to the boundless love of God. There's still time to change, so I urge you not to wait too long. For every choice you make carves a path into your future. One of the most shocking experiences I've encountered was at a youth gathering in a different church. After sharing my story, a young man approached me with tears welling up in his eyes. "Santiago," he whispered, "I'm also caught in the web of drugs, and I feel like there's no hope left for me. How can I escape this?" I looked into his eyes, the windows to a soul in turmoil, and spoke with conviction. "Jesus has done everything for you," I said. "You just need to decide to follow him. He will never abandon you." We prayed together that night. Though I couldn't predict the future, I trusted that God was already at work within him. This encounter reminded me of the reason behind my mission. It wasn't about me or my past. It was about the lives that could be transformed through God's truth. As I shared my story, the images of the souls I had witnessed in hell haunted me. Their cries and wails echoed in my mind. And each time I saw someone trapped in sin, a heavy burden pressed upon my heart. I knew I couldn't save anyone by myself, but I was aware of the weight of responsibility to speak out, to warn them before it was too late. In one of those quiet nights, as I was in prayer, I recalled something Jesus had told me in the depths of my despair. Not all will listen, but your mission is to sow the seed. I will do the rest. These words brought me peace. My role wasn't to convince everyone, but to be obedient and let God's work unfold. With each testimony I shared, my mission became clearer: to alert others of the dangers of sin and to point them toward salvation in Jesus. I was aware that not everyone would accept the message, but I understood that my duty was to be true to what God had shown me. Yet, the constant burden I bore was the memory of those late cries of repentance that lingered in my thoughts. What if I had died without this chance? How many of my loved ones are walking towards the same fate, oblivious to the truth? These questions weighed on me nightly, but they also propelled me forward. Silence was not an option. I knew that time is a gift we cannot take for granted. Each day we neglect to seek God brings us one day closer to an eternity shaped by where we stand now. If you're reading this, know that you're not here by chance. God has a purpose for your life, just as He had one for mine. Perhaps you think you have time, that you can fix things later, but what if there is no later? I once lived under the illusion of control, only to find myself standing at the brink of an abyss. Hell is real. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not just a place of physical torment, but one of utter emptiness, despair, and eternal separation from God's love. Many end up there because they reject God's love or simply turn a blind eye to it. Jesus doesn't desire for anyone to be lost. His love for you is beyond measure, and He has already done everything necessary for your salvation. His sacrifice on the cross was sufficient to blot out any sin, no matter how large or small. But salvation is a choice you must make. Take a moment to ponder if you were ready to face eternity today. My intent isn't to scare you, but to encourage deep reflection. None of us know how much time we have left, and I learned the hard way that time waits for no one. Jesus gave me a second chance, and today He extends the same offer to you. Regardless of where you are or what you've done, His love and forgiveness are available to you. If you feel God touching your heart now, don't dismiss it. Pray with me. Lord Jesus, I know I've failed and am not worthy of your love, but today I understand that you love me despite everything. Forgive me for my sins and the times I've ignored you. I choose to follow you now. I give you my heart and my life. Guide me along your path and help me to live for you. If you've prayed this prayer, know that you've just made the most crucial decision of your life. Life with Jesus isn't promised to be easy, but I assure you it will be full of purpose and hope. Today, my life is drastically different. I no longer chase money, fame, or power. Instead, I live to share this message and warn others before it's too late. No matter how often I must recount my story, I do not mind, for I know that every soul reached is worth more than anything in this world. As I write these final words, I leave you with this thought. Eternity begins with a single decision. What will you choose today? Do not overlook this opportunity. Seek God with all your heart, and I promise you will never regret it. May God bless you and guide you always.